Welcome to Data Games. This is a teacher introduction to the game called Shuffleboard. In this video, we'll explore the math in this game and give you some hints to help you guide a lesson. I assume you've watched the 2 student videos introducing the game and played a game or 2 yourself. So you know that the challenge of Shuffleboard is to get 4 discs as close as you can to the right-hand edges of the 4 scoring pads. On the first level, the Washington level, students guess and check and quickly find the 4 magic numbers that give you the best score. So let's concentrate on the next level, Adams, where the push factor changes every game, and you need 300 points 3 times in a row to move up to Jefferson. Magic numbers won't help. You need data. If you have a line through some data on the default graph, you can use the equation of the line to calculate the push. For example, suppose I want to get the 4th pad whose right edge is at 345. So I know end pause, the ending position, is supposed to be 345 or a little less. In this equation, I want push, so I take that 345, subtract 12 to get 333, and divide that by 5.13 to get 64.9. I can't enter a decimal, so I use 64, not 65, since I don't want to overshoot. Sure enough, I get 90 points. Notice how I unwound the equation. I used inverse operations to find the push I needed. This is really exactly the same thing as solving the equation, but using common sense instead of symbolic algebra. Some students who are not so good with symbols can do this surprisingly well. The problem is how to get this line. With 5 discs and 4 pads, there's some leeway, but not a lot. Basically, you have to start making the line after the first disc. Students will have different ways of doing this. Some will spear the first point and try to make the intercept match the initial position. Some will ignore the intercept, but then refine the line after the second disc. One team of 7th graders actually started every game with a push of 1. One senior did everything with the table and never used the graph. Anything that makes sense and uses the data is good. Consider having students explain their strategies. The key is that they use the data. So you can ask, how did you decide how hard to push? Where do you expect this one to end up? Why did you position the line where you did? How are you using the graph? What is the slope of this line? What does it mean? To get students to think about the intercept, you might ask, where would this disk end up if you pushed it 0? And in this game, they can actually try that. That amount of modeling will get students through the Adams level. In fact, unlocking Jefferson is a good goal for an algebra class. When you get to Jefferson, however, things change. The old strategies will work sometimes, but not consistently. If students don't notice what's causing this, ask them where a disk started. This should get them to look at the table and see that the disks don't all begin at the same place as they did with the earlier levels. There are different ways to cope with this. The distance is still directly proportional to push. So if you calculate the distance, you should get a straight line and an equation you can use reliably. One way is to calculate a new column. In the gear menu in the table, choose New Attribute in Disks. Give it a name such as distance and a suitable formula. In this case, end pause minus start pause, the ending position minus the starting position. Now you can plot distance against push, and even lock the intercept to find the push factor. Higher levels get even more sophisticated and more interesting. On some levels, there's variability, so that with the same push, you get slightly different results. This affects how much you might want to back off from the end in order to avoid getting a 0 score when you fall in the crack. So, where does an activity like this fit? It could be an introduction to linear relationships, and you wouldn't use some of the upper levels. Or maybe it's a mid-unit reinforcement for some interesting skills, or perhaps it's a capstone activity, or maybe the class even has a tournament to see who has the best score. Good luck!